If the Vikings win tonight, they go to Philadelphia. Here is how they can beat the Rams. Welcome to the Locked On Vikings podcast.
You are Locked On Vikings, your daily Minnesota Vikings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Locked On Vikings podcast, where we are always trying to learn something new. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And thank you so much for making Locked On Vikings your first listen of the day every single day. I appreciate you all so very much. And thank you. If this is the last pregame episode of the season, thank you all so much for hanging out all year. This show does go on during the off season every single day, just like normal. There's so many free agency topics and draft stuff to get into after the off season. So if the off season does indeed begin tonight, that's what we'll do. Otherwise, we'll keep on going with more stuff on the next game, which after the events of Wild Card Weekend are set, with the exception of this Monday night game. The Vikings would go to Philadelphia, or the Rams would if they win, and the Commanders, after an exciting doink-in win, will go to Detroit. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets if you win or lose that first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. So today on the show, as we got an extra day to like super break this down, this matchup down. So I actually got some time to watch Rams tape and do scouting, which is usually not something I can like get around to in the course of a week, but we have an extra day. We did this over under. We did the bold predictions on Friday. You can go check those out if you want. We can get into some like nitty gritty today, huh? So let's do that. I have some questions that I went in to set out to answer. One is, what's been wrong with Matt Stafford? Doug McCain on the crossover Thursday, which you can also still go listen to. This is going to be an hour and a half of preview content on this game that you can listen to all day long while you wait and while time crawls while you wait for 5 o'clock or 7 o'clock Central. I'm sorry, I'm Pacific time. But the questions that I set out to answer are, for one, what's wrong with Matt Stafford? When Doug McCain told me what like, he said, you know, hey, he's not been himself lately, or what? Like, what does that mean? How does that manifest? What has been the reasoning for the Rams struggling to get over, 20 points a game lately? And some of that's like, rain against the 49ers, but I do think there is something there. I'll kind of explain that, talk a little bit about what I think a possible exploit is in the dynamics the Rams have going on up front, as well as their run game and kind of how that's been really good. And then their defense, how their defense is structured and how the Vikings will probably set out to attack it. So we got a jam-packed show today. Let's dive in. First off, Matt Stafford. How do you beat Matt Stafford nowadays? The Matt Stafford that I know, that I've always known as somebody watching him across the field since 2009, we've seen him twice a year, right? We know him very well as Vikings fans. Has always been a very gritty quarterback, a very good improviser, but strong arm is like the defining factor of Matt Stafford that I've always understood watching him for literally my entire adult life. He's been the quarterback of somebody the Vikings play. And that arm strength is like, that's the talent that got him drafted first overall all the way back in 2009. The Matt Stafford that I am seeing now is much more of like a wily veteran type. That makes sense once you get into your higher 30s. He's 36 right now. Once you get into, your upper 30s, he'll be 37 in February. You will start to lose a little bit of athleticism. And I think we're starting to see some of the impacts on that. But that doesn't mean that Matt Stafford is like a potato. I think that there are some signs of aging, but we have to be very specific about what we're talking about, like what we expect those impacts to be. Because Stafford is still very much the kind of guy that you can get a free runner at. There's actually is a play exactly like this in a game against the Patriots, which I specifically set out to watch. By the way, I have 2 long Patreon videos on both the offense and the defense on this that you can find at patreon.com/LukeBrownNFL. That will go over a lot of the same points, but show film for it. So if you're interested in that. But the there's a play against the Patriots, which I picked because they have a very similar like structure of offense, a Belichick structured offense, right? So you're going to see a lot of the same fronts and coverages. And they sent a cross dog blitz that got a free runner basically. And Stafford had to basically falling away from it, sidearm one, through a needle to Puka Nacua, and then like did that. And there's one against Arizona as well. That's just these like hero ball plays that even in a game where you walked away from it going, is Matt Stafford bad now? Is he old? Is he like the narratives coming away from that Rams Cardinals game that they lost were pretty bad. Or no, they won like 13-9, but it was still like, boy, that offense really is not firing, huh? And even in that game, there's still those just super annoying, like, man, we really had him dead to rights, and he still found it. So I'm just going to sort of set my watch by a few of those happening just by virtue of Matt Stafford being Matt Stafford, by Puka being good, Cooper Kupp still good. One thing I like kind of wanted to know on the tape was like, where has he been? He's been a little quieter this year, and I think he's gotten a little more attention. And that's probably been a mistake from defenses that should have been giving that attention to Puka Nacua. And the chemistry is just a little off. Maybe he's not quite breaking things at the same timing he did before. And maybe that's injuries or age or whatever with him too. But whatever it is, it's not like he's not getting open. They're just a little out of sync. So if the Rams can show up and be in sync, this offense will hum. They will move the ball. They just will be able to. You can get that free blitzer on him all you want. Flores can cook up a Michelin star meal, but he's going to get it out because he's Flores or because he's Stafford. He's just going to get the ball out. He's going to get there. McVay's going to scheme up some cool play. Like it's going to happen. You're just going to have to like walk into the game understanding that they will get some licks on you, and you have to hope that you're going to win the game anyways. But I think that brings me to the sort of elephant in the room that's on everybody's mind. With the wildfires going on in LA and the game being moved to Phoenix. By the way, I hope you all got tickets if you were looking for them. There was a pretty cool opportunity in like the early resale window, right when the tickets went on sale. There was with Gametime, it was awesome. Not even an ad. It was just a good opportunity. And a lot of people have DM'd me being like, I got my tickets really cheap. This is awesome. So I hope you can all go if you are a Vikings fan in Arizona and you're thinking about going. And if anything will put you over the fence, to do it. It's fun. Even if you're worried that you're like, oh, what if I like make a whole big thing out of it and spend my whole day there and then they lose? You will still. I've been to playoff losses. Okay, it's still a great time with the people you love. It's absolutely worth your time. But with the game being in Arizona and everything being kind of weird, right? And the Cardinals are kind of doing their best to give the Rams still some kind of home field advantage. And they're just trying to be, as helpful of a team as they can. They're, giving the Cardinals a look at I think Sean McVay actually requested the visitors locker room because they're just like more used to that room. And, they're putting all the Rams markings on the field, of course, and they're decking it out in as much Rams as possible. You'll hear the like whose house, Rams house thing on the broadcast and all that. But it's weird. And that shouldn't be in anyone's head at the pro level, but it might. But I think what is more worth mentioning is just geographically in LA. I live in Los Angeles. And if you don't, you might not really understand the massive size that LA is, that somebody that lives, in the proper LA city, or, in Hollywood, true Hollywood, or like Inglewood by where the stadium is actually pretty far away from where the Rams practice, which is in a place called Woodland Hills. I actually used to have a job over there, so I know that area pretty well. And that area has been evacuated and then unevacuated, and it's very close to the big fire. So a lot of the Rams got evacuated. They're like Stafford's players, people actually did have to like leave their homes. The Cardinals provided a couple of team planes to the Rams, and they had to load up their family, their pets, to get out of there to go spend the weekend in Arizona as like kind of an evac strategy. And then they practiced over there in Arizona. So this whole week has been weird. some of these guys are potentially worried about their homes and their memories and their stuff and like, what can they do? Or even if it is resolved, at the very least, they were when they were practicing. So the Rams have a resiliency test here. And I think every person reacts to this kind of stuff differently. So far be it from me from making any kind of prediction about how they'll respond to this. But I think there are some people that will get in their heads. They'll be off. They won't be quite as, in rhythm. It's not like they won't be focused. It's just that you won't quite have the feel for it because you're a little maybe head elsewhere. And some people look at that challenge, rise to it, and the resiliency almost motivates them, fuels them, and they play even better. I don't know who the Rams are, but we'll find out. But I think that will, if it does manifest itself as a problem for the Rams, I think it will come in the form of poor chemistry between Stafford and Kupp and Nacua. And, timing being off, right? Like throws that kind of are like too far or just a little bit too, or maybe just a little behind him. Things that just aren't quite right, like there. That's a very chemistry thing. And it's not something that you can like super dial in. It's something you have to feel. And those are the kinds of things that can be affected by an outside influence. I don't know if that's it. I don't know if that will happen at all. But if this is a problem, I think that's how it shows up. But I want to talk a bit about the run game. I want to talk a bit about a lot about the defense. So that will all be next year on Locked On Vikings. Today's episode of Locked On Vikings is brought to you by LinkedIn. Growing your small business in 2025 is going to come down to how well you can hire. I'm probably not breaking news to you there, but better hires always start with smarter insights. And what I am here to tell you about is LinkedIn helping you do just that. They have the strongest hiring data available. They help you identify the right candidates, give you the confidence to make the best decisions for your business, and connect you with the best candidates. Small businesses are always, like people who run hiring for a small business, always wearing a ton of hats, right? Or even if you are like HR for a bigger firm, you're doing a lot of stuff and hiring can't take all of your time, which is why this data is so important. 72% of small businesses say that LinkedIn has helped them find high quality candidates. So from unique skills and interests and the connections that you share, LinkedIn has all kinds of tools to help you find the right person for your job and your business's unique needs. Hire smarter this year and find your next great hire on LinkedIn. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. This episode is also brought to you by PrizePicks. It is playoff time, and if you're like me, you have some kind of PrizePicks lineup going on for every single game so far. With PrizePicks, all you got to do is pick more than or less than on player stats like passing yards, rushing touchdowns, or whatever. PrizePicks has their house projection, and you just got to pick whether it's going to do better or worse. So, for example, if you thought that Bo Nix would get less than, I actually did it in the middle of a game, which you can do because I woke up a little bit late on Sunday. I slept in to like 10:10. I missed the first drive and ended up looking at a Bo Nix passing number of 252. I picked less than, and then a more than on a James Cook number and ended up winning that one like 2.75 times my money. That is the kind of thing you can find on PrizePicks. There's a special offer for Locked On NFL listeners. Download the app today and use code Locked On NFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's PrizePicks. Run your game. Once again, download the app and use the code Locked On NFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Thanks so much for making Locked On Vikings your first listen of the day. Moving onward, I've got another thing to say about Matt Stafford before we kind of move on here. The way that his age might manifest itself, if it truly is a problem, like I see two outcomes here. I see this as being the one where Matt Stafford shows up, lays an egg, and we go, oh my God, he's old and washed. And then there's the one where he shows up, completely erases all of the questions of the last month and throws an absolute perfect game, like throws a heater all day. Which one we get, who's to say, right? That's where if you think go to PrizePicks. But if you get the bad one and we start talking about age, here's how I think age has affected him. So Matt Stafford, he has a very good sixth sense for pressure. He's got eyes in the back of his head for blindside pressure. Like he knows, he can hear the footsteps. He knows where people are. He has that awareness. And I don't think you make it this long in the league without it. And so that's part of what makes him really good at like getting rid of the ball and making a really crazy play, even with a free rusher coming at him. But where that gets him in trouble is the last few games, at least, he's been feeling it early. And that's an observation that I don't think you can argue with. I think if you turn on the tape, you'll see the same thing. What you can argue with is the theory behind why. And when he feels that pressure, he likes to throw off platform. He always has. I think of a game, I want to say it was back in like 2011, maybe, or 2010. Maybe it was his rookie year. Against the Browns, where he like gutted it out through a rib injury for this, and Lions fans kind of understood that this guy was going to be a guy for them for a while. And in that game, even I remember him making these crazy sidearmy, like off-platform throws. This athleticism that has carried him for his career. And so when he feels pressure, he's pretty comfortable cutting the step of setting his feet, and like resetting to save the time that would take. And now he can get rid of the ball fast. That's how he gets rid of the ball fast. This is integral to Matt Stafford's game. You take that skill away, and Matt Stafford no longer works as an idea. And they're starting to go on him. So some of these plays, in particular, I think he tried to throw like 3 different interceptions against the Cardinals, and they like dropped all of them, were these kinds of moments, either that or like a rollout where he's trying to fit a window he maybe can't quite fit anymore. And I don't think his lower half is quite as flexible as it used to be. And I think it's starting to catch up to him right now. And what he has to do, he's had a week off, maybe he just had a week off to figure this out and this won't be an issue anymore, is recalibrate what he can and can't get away with. This is something that quarterbacks have to do when they get old. Aaron Rodgers had to do it. Tom Brady had to do it. I remember the first half of the season where Brady won the Super Bowl with the Bucs, the COVID year. He was pretty rough. And he had to recalibrate all that, figure out what he could and couldn't get away with again. And they had kind of on the fly redesigned what they had to do. And they were like white hot by the time they got into the playoffs again. They ended up going all the way to the Super Bowl and winning it. I remember Peyton Manning having to do that in Denver. Like when you get old and you can't do what you used to do, you just kind of have to reconfigure your game a little bit. And now that you've got, more than a decade of experience, you probably can, but you have to fail a little bit before it like sets in that you can do, that you have to. And that's where I think he's at. The problem is when he feels that pressure and tries to like feel it, anticipate it, and make sure that he can get a good pass away in enough time. And he'll still run around and scramble and make plays on you, by the way. He's no statue. That's certainly not how age is manifesting in Matt Stafford. It's manifesting in the fact that one of Stafford's solutions is throwing off platform, and that throw has been spotty on him. So, if you flash a little color at him, or if you like Jonathan Bullard style walk a guy back into him, I think you can force him to make off-platform throws that miss. That's my Matt Stafford key, is get him to feel pressure. You don't have to get pressure. You don't need to manufacture free rushers all day long. I don't think that's the way. I think the way is make him feel it. Show a little bit of color. Show a threat. Walk a guy back. And who do you walk back? Well, their left tackle is a disaster. He's number 77. If it's still the same guy, he's a problem. Their center is an easy-ish guy to walk back. I think Joe Noteboom, their right tackle, number 70, is beatable, but certainly not the problem on that line. And I actually think both of their guards are pretty good. So there's your pressure points. So this could be a game of, I would love to put Jonathan Bullard at 0 tech in base packages. I know that's got a run game impact you might not like, so I don't know if the Vikings are going to want to do that. But I would love to see that in passing situations. And hey, go walk back that center. Or if you feel like he can walk back the guard, go do that. I just think those guards are bad. Kevin Dotson and I forget the other guy's name, but I think those guys have played pretty well in the tape that I watched. So that's the Stafford deal. I want to get him to feel pressure, ruin the timing, and hope that you can sort of coax them into a fragile mental state. Really quick on the run game. When they run, it's a little more diverse than like what we see with the Vikings. When the Vikings run, it's very, very simplistic. They didn't spend a lot of time, I think, putting in super complicated running concepts. They're going to do their basics. They're going to try to execute them well, and they did for quite a bit of the year until Darisaw got hurt, pretty much. And then the Ingram Reisner thing, I think, took a bit away from that as well. Which I think the pass protection has been, as much as it hasn't been perfect and certainly not flawless, probably has been better. So that's probably the trade-off that they made. I'm still not sure I can be convinced that I agree with it, but it's similar. And his losses are looking more like Ed Ingram losses now. It's kind of funny. I wrote a whole article about it a couple weeks ago that sort of like stamped my flag on like true agnosticism on this now, which, hey, I disagreed with it in the first place. So that's progress. But Kyren Williams is a very patient, smart runner. He's very good at spacing. He's very good at decision making. And I think Blake Corum is like pretty good at that stuff too. Kyren Williams in pass pro is another thing. And one of the keys to this game, like maybe the key matchup in this game when the Rams have the ball, is going to be Vikings linebackers, Pace and Cashman, against Kyren Williams. Because the way the Rams pass protect, they do a lot of jet protection. They will split their protection in half. Man side, slide side, and that line, you maybe you just get a Van Ginkel win on their bad left tackle, like sure, right? But their line will allow like an interior rusher and trust that the running back's got him. Some lines don't like to do that. Some lines will say no, like prioritize the inside gap, and if a guy comes from the outside, the running back can take him, but at least he'll have a longer path. And some of them just go, no, you know what? Let's sort it out the way we know how. And if a guy comes from depth, the running back will take him no matter where he is. The Rams are one of the latter kind of teams. And Kyren Williams has been good in pass pro. Kyren Williams kicked so much ass in pass pro in the first game. One of the biggest reasons the Vikings couldn't get pressure on Stafford was because Kyren Williams kept winning reps on Ivan Pace. So we got to just do better there. And even if you don't get sacks, even if you don't get nominal pressures, if you can make him feel it and he throws one with his feet wrong, it's not going to turn out as well as that kind of thing would have back in, say, 2021 when the Rams won the Super Bowl. And I think that's been a huge difference for their offense in this December. Unless he refigured out what he had to do and he overcame all the fire, stress and drama, and he just shows up because it's a playoff game and plays his best ball, which it is Matt Stafford. He's used to the playoffs. Certainly that is possible. But I do want to switch and talk about the defense and some exploits with players you might not expect there to be exploits with necessarily. That'll be next on Locked On Vikings. This episode of Locked On Vikings is brought to you by FanDuel. From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are so much better with FanDuel. And right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. It's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. Right now, the Los Angeles Rams money line is plus 120. So if you want a little emotional hedge, let's say the Rams do eliminate the Vikings, but you put $5 on that, you get $200 in bonus bets, whether it wins or loses. And if you win, you get more than twice your money. You can find that at FanDuel.com. Just visit there to join today and get started with $200 in bonus bets. That is at FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, let's talk about how the Vikings might attack the Rams defense. I actually think I have a pretty good idea of what they're going to want to do. And I don't even think that the Vikings are going to want to hide this, because I think that they have a really good rock, paper, scissors matchup in the secondary. But my read on the Los Angeles Rams defense is as follows. Rams fans get mad at me or not, but this is what I see as a fairly neutral observer. I think their D-line is their strength. I think I'm on safe ground there. In particular, I think the best player on that D-line is Fiske, is 55, the rookie. And that might be a scalding take because Jared Verse is like probably winning defensive rookie of the year. Maybe it's Quinion Mitchell. But like Jared Verse has been like the premier defensive end. I'm going to get back to him. But Either way, Byron Young playing well. They've got other rotational guys playing well. Like those guys can, in particular, rush the passer very well. So every time one of those guys is on a one-on-one with Blake Brandel or with Dalton Reisner or even Bradbury or Cam Robinson, who had such a meltdown in that in the last Lions game, is an opportunity for something good to happen for the Rams. Every one-on-one they get, and they will get lots of one-on-ones just by the numbers. So that's their strength. Their weakness is on the back end. And I don't necessarily know if it's because like they just don't have the Jimmies and Joes back there or if it's a defensive philosophy thing. But the Rams love too high. They love cover two. And I'm not talking about too high looks like pre-snap that can turn into quarters or rotate into other stuff. I'm talking about too high defenses, like not necessarily quarters, not cover three, but cover two. And it's kind of three main variants you see in the NFL today, which is vanilla cover two, which the Rams like more than any team I've seen in the league all year. 5 underneath defenders and 2 deep defenders on the roof. And the 5 underneath defenders are going to be at whatever depth they need to based on the way they read the routes. You can attack that spatially. The Vikings have a million beaters for it. They also love Tampa 2, which is the same thing, but the underneath defender in the middle drops a lot deeper. The 2 deep safeties will drop a lot wider, and it sort of turns into a pseudo middle of field closed defense. And guess what? The Vikings have a ton of beaters for that. And the last one that they love is 2-man. When they feel like they want to be physical, and I think the Vikings are going to see a lot of 2-man in this one. When they feel like they want to be physical, they put 2 high safeties, and then they have everybody else play underneath and trail position. And guess what? The Vikings have a lot of beaters for that. So if the Rams are going to come in and be a dedicated cover 2 team, or if they're going to say, as an example, go and watch the 2022 playoff game against the Giants, watch how much 2-man there was, and how much Adoree Jackson was in, trail coverage with a guy over the top, turning into a bracket on Justin Jefferson and watching Jefferson totally disappear from that game. The Rams turn that on and decide we're going to be a 2-man team. They will die to Jordan Addison. This is what happened to the Jaguars. Jaguars played almost exclusively 2-man. And while the Vikings didn't score a lot, that was because of interceptions. They moved the ball at will. The yards per play there were just gaudy. The Rams are going to do this. I warned Doug McCain about this on Thursday. If that's the way the Rams want to play, it plays directly into the teeth of the Vikings. And if the Vikings show up and play the football we know that they're capable of and don't choke this away like they did against Detroit, or if, Jared Verse doesn't just take over the game, it's going to be a long day for that defense. It just doesn't seem like the plan that I would take to play the Vikings at all. But hey, I'm just a podcaster. I'm not a defensive coordinator. If they make that decision and they have their reasons and it works out and I'm wrong and I'm an idiot, so be it. But let's get into Jared Verse, because something I noticed was, this is a rookie thing. When he lines up on the running back side, which means he's probably going to be on the backside of a run. We saw a ton of this because the Cardinals love shotgun. And so do the Patriots. When he lines up on what will ultimately be the backside of a run, he crashes. He will crash every time. He does not have a quarterback responsibility, like ever. Whether it's a bootleg heavy team like Miami, which I watched for this one, or for San Francisco, or whether it's like a read option style team, whatever it is, they won't do it. And we actually got a really instructive example from one of the other wild card games this week, the Bills and Broncos. I apologize. The Ravens and Steelers. The Steelers did something very similar with TJ Watt. They didn't want TJ Watt hesitating to read Lamar Jackson on read option. They wanted him to tee off and chase down Derrick Henry, and so they trusted somebody else to be the quarterback player. That player was often Patrick Queen, who screwed it up a bunch and played from depth and couldn't tackle Lamar and had all kinds of mistakes, and Lamar ran all over them. But who is responsible for the quarterback is a decision that you have to make anytime you're on the backside of the run. Who on that side is responsible for the boot, the read option, the whatever the team is going to do with its quarterback. And if you're not doing either of those things with your quarterback, you're probably pretty dated offense. The Rams love to bring down an overhang defender, like bring a linebacker out of the middle of the field and onto the edge, so he can be the guy that covers the quarterback. And now Jared Verse can tee off. They don't want Jared Verse reading. And I think it's for different reasons than with TJ Watt. Of course, he's been a good player for them. They're very excited about him. But I think it's more that this is a rookie that maybe didn't have to do a ton of that at Florida State. It is the ACC, but it's a different ACC than when like Patrick Jones was there. That's all he had to do. And whatever it is, the Rams have been very willing to leave that backside totally uncovered for the quarterback. So rollouts, or in Miami's case, reverses, or like anything that fakes outside zone one way, away from Jared Verse, he will trigger down, he will lose sight of the quarterback, he will chase it. Then you can roll out, you can have all the time in the world, you can do a reverse, you can do, jet sweep or do something like that. You can do whatever. So stupid little flick out to Josh Oliver is kind of a banger of a play in this one, I think. Because they aren't asking Jared Verse to like read or think on this. They're saying pin your ears back and go. And yeah, that's going to make you a playmaker, but it's not like a full roll. And so I think it's attackable. And I also think in the run, these edges, as fun as they have been, I've seen them get washed around a little bit, even by O-lines that are maligned like Miami's. And so I think you can run on them. I do. So all this to be said, if you're good at beating cover 2 and you're good at rolling out, you can move the ball. If you can push the pocket, you can keep at least a lid on the Rams offense. That feels like boxes that the Vikings, if they play their ball, can check. My only concern here is an emotional one. The Rams respond to the tragedies of the wildfires and that it motivates them and they come out playing with their hair on fire. And the Vikings, are still sulking from their loss to the Lions and they come out flat and lay an egg. So I've been saying everywhere, I think you're going to know early. I think by the end of the first quarter, I'm not talking about score necessarily, but the vibe. If the Vikings have good vibes and they're playing well, then I think they'll have figured this out, and the onus will be on the Rams to pull it together, adjust, try something new, and hope, that you kind of have to play a chess match from there. If the Vikings come out flat, they go down 14-0 right away, it could be a long day. But I think you're going to know early, and I'm not asking the Vikings to have their best day of the year. I don't think they have to. I think they have to do what they can do well, and I think it matches up well against the weaknesses that I identified. I'm not an advanced scout. I'm not a GM. I'm not a coach. Okay. I'm just a guy with eyeballs and I'm trying to use them. So don't kill me if I'm wrong here, but I do think the Vikings in their normal state match up well. And I think both teams just show up and play their normal ball. I like the Vikings' chances a lot. So here we go. Next time we talk, this game will be over. There will be a result, and we'll know if the Vikings season is over or if they're headed to Philly. We'll be on the postcast on the Locked On Minnesota Sports YouTube channel, or the audio feed will go right here on Locked On Vikings afterwards. And then, of course, I'll give you a Locked On Vikings podcast in the morning. I will see you all for that. And as always, Skull.